G'day, Hugh here from videsign.com.au, a design company based on the Gold Coast in Australia, and welcome to my latest tutorial. Thank you for joining me. Today I thought we'd go through some Photoshop techniques to create portraits that look quite cinematic, grungy, noir sort of look. Something you'd see on a poster. Definitely not romantic or soft. This is hard sort of stuff, but it really looks cool. So let's hop into Photoshop and I'll show you how it's done. Okay, so here I have a portrait of a guy in a truck smoking a pipe. Now it's a very flat portrait and it gives us plenty of scope to really make it look cinematically interesting and grungy, just to create a really interesting looking effect. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate this layer, so that way we've got two layers, the original and one that we're going to be working on, and then we can always switch this working layer off to see how it compares with the original photo. Now what we want to do is add back some contrast to this, but not too much, but you can see there's very low contrast at the moment, so we do want it to be a little bit more contrasty. We'll add more contrast in as we go, but a little bit more than what we have at the moment. So select the levels, so image, adjustments, levels, menu, and bring your left up to about 25 and your right amount down to about 230 thereabouts, to just improve the contrast of the image. You can see on and off, so it's really added that contrast back in. Now the next step is to work on the hue and saturation of this image. So we come up again to image, adjustments, hue and saturation, bring the saturation down and bump the hue up a bit, bring the saturation down even further. Okay, so okay to that. So that's now it's the contrast we had brought in has reduced a little bit when we've reduced the saturation. That's okay, we'll get back to adding back contrast as we go. Now we've worked on the hue and saturation. I think actually we will do the contrast now. So what we'll do is we'll come up to image adjustments and go to curves, and we'll add an S-curve to this image. So click in 3 points, 1, 2, 3. We've got guides there to show us where we want them to be, and just drag the top one up and the bottom one down to create a bit of a flattened S-curve, bringing some contrast back into the image. That's pretty cool. Now you can see where we were and where we are. It's really becoming stylized straight away, just from a few simple adjustments in the using the adjustments. Okay, so now we've got that. What we want to do is we want to duplicate this layer. So again, just drag it down and drop it on top of the new layer icon, and away we go. We've got a new layer. So what we want to do with this new layer is put a filter on it. We want to go filter, other, high pass, and that creates this grayscale image. We want to keep it at 4 pixels. Say OK, and then change the blending mode to overlay. Okay, so that gives us a high pass layer to work with, a high pass filtered layer. So we've done that. What we want to do now is merge the two layers that we've been working on. So I had this one selected, hold the shift key down, select the one below it, right click, brings up your menu, go to merge layers, click on that, and they become one layer now. Right, so now what we want to do is come up to image, mode, and change it from RGB to lab color. But we don't want to merge our working layer with our original. We just want to keep working on this one particular layer. Right, so now if we come across here to channels, we can see we've got lab, lightness, and A and B. I won't go into what all that means, but what we wanted to work on is on the lightness layer. So if you click on that, you can see it switched off all the others. So we'll just switch them back on by clicking on the eye next to the lab, and it brings them all back. Okay, so now what we want to do is do a bit of work on this image, and what we want to do is dodge and burn. So really we want to work on the skin. We're not too worried about other parts of the image. It's just the skin. It is a portrait, and the person in the photo is the most important part of the portrait. So we'll right click on the dodge and burn symbol, and it gives us our menu, and we'll click dodge. We want to change the range to highlights, the exposure keep at 30%, and have a brush that's sort of the right size for working on your image. Now what we're doing is we've chosen dodge, so we're going to brighten up some of these bright spots, and just select a few that we want to, few areas we want to work on. So you need a decent enough size brush, but not too big or not too small. Just that is going to allow you to work on specific areas. So we just want to focus on the knuckles there, and there's a bit of highlight there on the chin, a bit of lightness into the eye, especially this one around the eye. So this all comes down to personal taste. Now if you've gone too far, like I probably did then, you can go Control Z once to undo, and then Control Alt Z to further undo previous edits. So just to bring that back a little bit, and add a little bit of light there. And then once you're happy with the highlights, come to the midtones, and just sort of do the same thing, just to work on increasing the brightness of the midtones. And that's pretty cool. Now what we want to just do is come back to the tool and change it to burn. So right click on it, select burn, which is darkening, keep it with the midtones, and now we just want to grunge up the darker parts of this, really give it a good point of difference between what we just did with the burning, with the dodging. Now we're burning and giving it a very grungy look. Really brings out pores, and this sort of thing works well with males, not so much with females, because you want them to look soft, and with males a much harder look in this case, not always, but in this case. Okay, so now we've done our dodging and burning, we'll come back up to image mode and go back to RGB mode, but don't merge again like we did before, and come back here and change from channels back to layers. So we're still working on that layer. So now if we have a look at the original and where we are now, it's very much a cinematic look to it, but we can still do a little bit of work with this to make it look a little less, I guess it looks very bleak, so we can add a little bit more life back into it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the shadows and the highlights. So we'll come up to image adjustments and choose what we'll do is shadows and highlights. Move that across so that we're see what we're working on. Now, the shadows. I think we want the shadows to be fairly pronounced. So what I think with that was we'll have them at about 10%, a tone of 20, a radius of about somewhere around 25. Excellent. And with our highlights, we'll bring them up to about 15, not too high. I think the tone will bring down to about 40. reduced to about 20. That's really starting to look cool. Okay, so we'll say okay to that. Before, after. Right, so I think with this, what we'll do now is we'll put on a mask. So we'll come up to filter, sharpen, an unsharpened mask. And what we'll do with that is we'll make it about 25, I guess. Yeah, 24, 25. Radius of around that sort of 25 mark. Keep the threshold at 0. So we'll say okay to that. So it puts a mask on there. Now what else will we do? I think we'll also... What we'll do is we might look at the vibrance actually. Yeah, it's still a little bit it's a little bit desaturated. So I'll just go to the vibrance, and what we'll do is we'll actually bring the vibrance down, the saturation up. So his red jacket really does look, it's like it's standing out. So where we started was with this, and where we are now is with that. Comic book look, film noir, you know, it's very Sin City feel to it. I mean, it's a style. It's you know, it's it's not always going to be for everything, but it's a thing we've done for our particular photo here, that we've changed a fairly stock standard looking portrait into something that's really dramatic. So that's the tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's not too difficult if you follow the steps. There's a few, but it's just a matter of maybe just going through them one by one and seeing how it's done, and you can end up with an image that starts off looking something like this and ends up looking like something like that. You could use that on a movie poster or on a website. It's very stylized and quite interesting, not all that difficult to get to. So till next time, thank you for joining, and I'll see you soon.